1. Preserving meat for extended periods without refrigeration might seem impossible, but for the Amish, it forms part of their everyday lives. Believe me, once you grasp their secrets, honed through centuries of experience and passed down from generation to generation, you might start looking at your refrigerator in a whole new way. You may even be ready for the next blackout, an event increasingly common in this unpredictable world of ours. The methods provide resilience and self-sufficiency in a very practical and deeply satisfying connection to a lifestyle that puts resourcefulness and sustainability above all else. The knowledge they hold represents a valuable link to a past where food preservation was not an optional convenience, but a necessity for survival, a skill that ensured the well-being of entire communities. 2. Before widespread electrification in the 1930s, approximately 90% of American households relied on similar preservation methods, demonstrating the universality and effectiveness of these techniques. This was no quaint practice done secretly by a small, insular community, but rather a widespread activity, an integral part of daily existence for the overwhelming majority of people. Then, during World War II, in an era of scarcity and rationing, the United States government sought out the Amish to learn their proven food preservation techniques and sent representatives for that purpose. This underscores the deep value and practicality of their techniques, which demonstrate their effectiveness even in the face of severe resource limitations and national emergencies. The Amish were not merely preserving food. They were preserving a vital skill set, a legacy of knowledge that proved invaluable during a period of national crisis. 3. What really fascinates me about these methods is their inherent sustainability, their complete lack of waste. There is no plastic packaging to rely on, no energy-intensive refrigeration, and absolutely no chemical preservatives. It's pure, natural preservation at its finest, techniques that have withstood the relentless test of time, a testament to their effectiveness and enduring relevance. As one of my Amish neighbors once said, "We didn't invent sustainable living, we just never stopped doing it." This simple statement forms the basis of their philosophy, where practicality, resourcefulness, and a deep respect for the natural world are deeply ingrained. It's a good reminder that sustainable practices aren't anything new, but a return to basic principles that have always made life responsible. 4. Let's start with salt, the first food preservative, a substance so vital to human survival that it may well be credited with your being here today. It is no exaggeration to say that your forebears probably owed their survival to this easily accessible mineral, now relegated to a simple condiment on our dinner tables. Salt, so long considered an item of mere seasoning, would have represented riches and power, if not something rather more than either. Its use as a coin is still understandable. Even after the coin became standard, for a time men were paid their wages in salt, an instance which explains that word salary, that soundly continues speaking to us. This historical background gives a significant perspective on salt, the importance of this element in human history, and the continued role of salt in preserving food. 5. My first try at salt-curing meat was a lesson in humility. Armed with the confidence garnered from a few old books, I approached the task with naive optimism. How hard can it be? I thought, overlooking subtleties and nuances of a process that demands precision and patience. 3 weeks later, I found the stark difference between salt-cured and, well, salt-murdered meat. My Amish neighbors, seasoned experts with years of experience, thought my efforts to be hilariously inept. Their advice, so good-naturedly chided, summed up to that simple yet sublime. You treat the meat like a date, they would say. Not too aggro, the right amount of attention. Of course, as an analogy to describe the gentle balance required, respect for the integrity of the ingredients as well as respect for the whole process. Such a simple analogy, might be just appropriate. 6. The scientific underpinnings of salt curing are pretty mind-blowing. Salt acts like a club bouncer, keeping unwanted guests from coming into the club. It does this by sucking water out of the meat, making that environment inhospitable for the bacteria. A kind of desert where microorganisms in them struggle to survive. This natural preservation method, free of artificial chemicals or energy-hungry processes, is by itself testament to the power of the simplest yet effective techniques. Even in a properly salt-cured ham, for example, the salting process lasts for years and years without the help of refrigeration, a drastic contrast to what commercially produced meats have, for many of these require refrigeration even after being processed. This presents the amazing preservation methods that remain long-lasting. 7. There's a specific measure for curing through the Amish, which consists of a ratio of roughly 2 pounds of salt for every 100 pounds of meat. It's not a formula evolved from difficult calculation or fancy testing in laboratories. It's rather a refined one, going way back over generations, speaking volumes for the effectiveness of experiential knowledge and closeness with their food on part of the Amish people. There is no question of their having kitchen scales or the latest measurement apparatus to measure all. Expertise results from profound process awareness, intuitively developed from extensive experience at first hand. They feel and know intuitively when enough salt has been used, which would have required experience and generation-long practice within a lineage. Such would point out how experiential learning can help in value learning, for a knowledge learned with direct interaction in a process, however hard it could be captured between the covers of a book or pages of a guide. 8. The process begins with a thorough rubbing of the meat with salt, a meticulous application that ensures even distribution and penetration. Imagine giving the meat a luxurious spa treatment, a pampering that goes far beyond a simple sprinkle of salt. The meat is then stored in a cool environment, ideally between 36 and 40 degrees Fahrenheit, for approximately 28 days. During this period, a remarkable transformation occurs. The salt slowly diffuses into the meat, denaturing the proteins and making it an unfavorable habitat for harmful bacteria to colonize. It's not about preserving the meat, it's about changing it, about improving its texture and flavor and simultaneously dramatically increasing its shelf life. 9. Know that every cut of meat needs to be treated differently. Another is to treat pork as well as beef, making a one-size-fits-all assumption. A delicate loin of pork should not be cooked like a tough ham. The cut requires a special touch, an appreciation of what makes it truly unique. As my Amish friend Eli wisely pointed out, treating all meat the same is like giving everyone the same size shoes. Someone's going to end up hurting. This simple analogy aptly explains why each cut should be considered and the preservation technique adapted to its specific needs. 10. The value of salt was acutely apparent during the American Civil War, particularly in the South. Salt became so precious and scarce that people went so far as to dig up the dirt floors in their smokehouses to recover some of the salt that had accumulated from years of the curing process. The desperation people had for salt underlines the critical role of salt in food preservation and the economic impact of the lack of salt. The Amish, however, were largely untouched by this shortage, as their established ways and self-sufficiency guaranteed a steady supply of salt-cured meats. Their preparedness and resourcefulness stand in stark contrast to the desperation faced by many during this turbulent period in American history. 11. The Amish continued their time-honored curing practices, their established systems ensuring a reliable supply of preserved meats. The key, however, lies in the precise timing. Too little time results in spoiled meat, while too much time can render the meat unpalatable, perhaps even suitable only as a doorstop. This highlights the importance of experience and careful observation. the need for a deep understanding of the process and its subtleties. It's not just a matter of the recipe. It's how you, on intuitive sense, learn the timing of things. This is something that's taken years and years of practice from generation to perfect. 12. The cellars of the Amish are truly impressive. Year-round, under-the-earth temperature stays cool, perfect for food preservation. Entering one of these cellars is like entering a time capsule, an olfactory journey into a world where the aromas of salt-cured meats mingle with the earthy scent of the cool soil. It is an experience that is at once sensory and historical, visceral in its connection to a way of life that prioritizes tradition and a deep respect for the natural environment. These cellars are not merely storage rooms. They represent the knowledge of generations and sustainable food preservation methods. 13. Although salt curing is a fantastic process, it often accompanies the art of smoking, which adds yet another layer of flavor and preservation. The Amish usually have smokehouses, small, well-built wooden structures that are very important to their food preservation system. These humble buildings are much more than just sheds. They are flavor factories that take simple cuts of meat and turn them into culinary masterpieces. The science of smoking meat involves all three elements: temperature, time, and the specific choice of wood, which all accumulate to the quality and longevity of the final product. 14. Upon entering an Amish smokehouse, the first impression is of the smell, a rich, warm fragrance that stimulates the appetite even when already sated. These small buildings, often not very impressive on the outside, house a process of profound culinary significance. My neighbor Eli, a master of the smoking technique, owned a smokehouse built by his grandfather in 1923. He recalled that his grandfather picked each piece of wood with meticulous care, stressing that a smokehouse is like a musical instrument. If you build it right, it'll play the perfect flavor symphony. This analogy just so aptly captures the artistry and precision involved, the delicate balance between technique and intuition. 15. The Amish are very fussy about smoking wood. Each type is known for its distinct flavor profile. Some popular smoking woods include hickory, apple, and cherry. Every family has a secret recipe passed down through generations, so every family has its unique blend. My ill-advised use of pine wood ended up making my meat taste like a Christmas tree, a culinary disaster that Eli hasn't let me live down. This has come underlined against choosing the proper wood. It reflects that much about the final flavor and the knowledge transmitted through generations in Amish families. 16. The largest smokehouse of the old-fashioned type that still exists within an Amish community can smoke 2,000 pounds of meat at once. That's equivalent to the weight of a small car, all without electricity or modern temperature control, and a testament to the ingenuity and resourcefulness of traditional methods. This sizable activity itself is not only significant, but also significant in the context of meat preservation for the Amish communities, the social dimension of the process, and the efficiency of their techniques. The smokehouse is not just a building. It represents community, cooperation, and sustainability with respect to food production. 17. The smoking process itself entails a dance between temperature and time. Maintaining the perfect temperature is very important. Too much heat causes cooked meat, and too little heat does not preserve it. The Amish use a very old-fashioned method of determining temperature. They hold their hands at smoking height and count seconds. 5 seconds means perfect temperature. I tried it myself and nearly got burned, which humbled me to appreciate their experience. This emphasizes the importance of experience and the development of an intuitive sense of temperature, a skill honed through years of practice. 18. The meat is carefully arranged within the smokehouse, hung on hooks or laid across wooden beams, ensuring even smoke circulation. The setup often resembles a meat chandelier, a striking visual testament to the artistry and precision involved. An Amish friend once joked that it was their version of modern art, meat in space, he called it. This whimsical description captures the unique aesthetic of the smokehouse, the artful arrangement of the meat, and the contrast between tradition and modernity. 19. Timing is also crucial in the smoking process, with some meats requiring days while others require weeks of smoking. Someone must maintain constant vigilance over the fire, a responsibility often shared within the community, turning the smokehouse into a gathering place, fostering social interaction and collaboration. This communal aspect underscores the importance of shared knowledge and the social fabric of Amish communities, where tasks and responsibilities are often shared among neighbors and family members. 20. Temperature control in a traditional smokehouse is an art form, a delicate balance that requires experience and intuition. The ideal temperature range is between 70 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Too much heat leads to cooked meat that spoils quickly, while too little heat allows bacteria to proliferate. The Amish accomplish such precise temperature control by finely adjusting small ventilation holes in the smokehouse walls, a process more like playing a giant meat organ, where each vent influences the temperature and airflow differently. 21. The smoke itself doesn't just flavor, but also acts as a natural preservative. Compounds within wood smoke create a protective barrier on the meat's surface, forming a thin layer that inhibits bacterial growth while simultaneously locking in flavor. This natural preservation technique, free from artificial chemicals, stands as a testament to the efficacy of traditional methods. 22. The Amish seem to have an intuitive sense of when the meat is smoked just right, using visual cues and a gentle squeeze. No fancy thermometers or timers, just years of experience and a deep understanding of the process. This skill, honed over generations, represents a profound connection between the Amish and their food, a testament to the power of intuition and hands-on knowledge. 23. In cases where preservation is to last for a longer time, the Amish would turn to the art of jerky making, a method that can greatly prolong the shelf life of meat. A method used in the most prehistoric of times, it stands as a core technique of food preservation, a method that has been employed by every culture through the course of history. 24. My first attempt at jerky making was a cautionary tale, a humbling experience that highlighted the complexities of this seemingly simple process. A sunny windowsill and excessive optimism yielded a product more suitable as emergency roofing material than culinary delight. My Amish mentor, with a knowing shake of his head, said, "You can't rush friendship or good jerky." That statement simply capsulized the patience and precision that is required. Knowing quality takes time and attention to detail. 25. The difference between fresh meat and jerky is nothing short of dramatic. A pound of fresh meat yields about 4 ounces of jerky. That significant reduction in volume is offset by the concentration of protein. So 4 ounces of jerky provides the same amount of protein as a pound of fresh meat. This efficiency makes jerky an ideal method of food preservation, maximizing the nutritional value while minimizing the volume required for storage. 26. The Amish take a very scientific approach to making jerky. They cut the meat with the grain, so it is uniform in thickness, about a 1/4 inch, which affects the drying process and the final texture of the jerky. They build complex drying racks that can hold hundreds of pounds of meat at one time, a testament to their ingenuity and the importance of jerky in their food preservation strategy. 27. Temperature control is crucial in jerky making. An ideal temperature range is between 85 and 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Too much heat causes cooked rather than dried meat, and too little heat fosters bacterial growth. This tight temperature control makes the subtlety of the drying process and consistent conditions even more important. 28. During the California Gold Rush, Jerky or dried meat was so valuable that it replaced gold in some exchange, and is even said to have been traded for nuggets of gold for strips of jerky. This shows just how important a source of nourishment jerky has been during these periods of scarcity and arduous conditions throughout history. 29. Seasoning plays an important role in jerky making. Every family has its own secret blend of spices that they pass down from generation to generation. Some of them use only salt and pepper. Others have complex mixes of herbs and spices, creating their very special flavor. These family recipes represent culinary heritage, a collection of knowledge and traditions passed down through time. 30. The drying process itself can take several days or even weeks, depending on factors such as meat thickness and humidity. The meat must be checked regularly and flipped occasionally to ensure even drying and to prevent spoilage. This consistent monitoring highlights the attention to detail and patience required for successful jerky making. 31. The Amish have a simple yet effective test for determining jerky readiness: the bend test. If a piece of jerky cracks cleanly when bent, it's over-dried. If it bends like rubber, it's not dry enough. This straightforward test relies on tactile feedback, a skill developed through experience and a deep understanding of the drying process. 32. For the preservation of meat in a more moist environment, the Amish use pickling, a technique that relies on brine to preserve meat for longer periods. Their techniques are complex and varied, involving many ingredients and methods. The picture of cucumbers in jars is just a small part of the much larger world of pickling, where the Amish have perfected the art of preserving an incredibly wide range of foods. 33. Pickled beef played a crucial role in sustaining naval crews during long voyages in the Age of Sail. The British Navy, for example, relied heavily on pickled meat, even employing official pickle inspectors to ensure quality and safety. This historical context highlights the importance of pickling as a crucial preservation method, ensuring the nutritional needs of sailors during extended periods at sea. 34. My first attempt at pickling meat was a culinary disaster, proof that one needs to know the right balance of vinegar and salt. The end product could have stripped paint, a humbling experience that really made me understand the importance of precision and attention to detail in pickling. 35. Once done properly, this pickled meat will last a long time, from years to some long-forgotten appliances from modern times, a feat so truly awesome for preservation of the meat by itself. So it is such an amazing effect that pickling as a means of preservation achieves. 36. The Amish method of pickling is a complex process, including a precisely balanced brine of salt, vinegar, and spices. Each ingredient is crucial for the final flavor and preservation characteristics of the end product. The brine is a carefully created mixture, the result of generations of knowledge and experience. 37. The Amish use many different spices to create a variety of pickles, using bay leaves, peppercorns, and mustard seeds, making the pickles taste very distinctive and flavorful. These spice mixes are part of a culinary tradition, a repertoire of recipes and traditions handed down through families and communities. 38. Temperature management in pickling is essential since warmth supports the growth of bacteria, whereas a cold environment would slow the rate of pickling. For perfect temperature, detailed attention has to be employed during the entire pickling process. 39. The biggest unit of pickled meat that I ever saw in an Amish community was for a wedding and was enough to feed 300 guests. This size makes it pretty obvious why pickling will be so effective in preserving large batches of meat that are needed to feed crowds. 40. Never pickle in aluminum containers. The acid in the brine will react with the metal, creating an unpalatable and dangerous effect. This is one of those tiny details that gets down to the nub of a difference in both the safety and, usually, quality of the final product. 41. The Amish have developed a simple test for determining brine strength. The test is to drop a fresh egg into the brine. If the egg floats, the brine is strong enough. If it sinks, more salt is required. This simple test works on the principle of buoyancy and is a very practical and effective method for evaluating brine concentration. 42. If all else fails, Amish put the meat into the ground. The practice sounds rather archaic, but really does work to preserve it in place for long-term periods. Though primitive by current standards, the technique reflects knowledge of the surroundings that is conducive to providing natural conditions of preservation. 43. It's not some random digging a hole and shoving the meat in there. Amish build really well-designed ground cellars or earth cellars underground storage, which maintains the temperature remarkably steady. These are a very high level of knowledge of environmental engineering, using Earth's natural properties to create ideal conditions for preservation. 44. A well-constructed ground cellar maintains a nearly constant temperature of 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, providing an environment ideal for long-term meat storage. This consistent temperature is crucial for preventing spoilage and maintaining the meat's quality. 45. The Amish have guidelines for how to lay meat in the ground cellars, placing various types of meat at different depths and in different positions in the cellar. This is indicative of an understanding of the microclimate of the cellar and what specific types of meat require. 46. In ground cellar construction, water seepage prevention is critical. The Amish employ sophisticated drainage systems to ensure that the cellar does not retain moisture, protecting the meat from moisture damage. These drainage systems show a certain understanding of hydrology and a need to keep the environment dry for long-term meat preservation. 47. During the Civil War, ground cellars in Southern families helped hide meat from raiding parties, thus providing both food storage and protection against theft. This shows that ground cellars served as an important preservation method, as well as a security means during times of conflict and scarcity. 48. Keeping track of temperatures in an earth cellar is something of an art. The Amish use creative ingenuity to know the conditions, such as hanging a bit of wool out to see whether it's moist. These rather simple, yet successful methods show insight into the cellar's microclimate and the subtlety of environmental inputs. 49. To prepare meat for underground storage was a very thoughtful process. Pieces of meat would be wrapped within layers of paper, cloth, and sometimes even straw to present a protective seal against moisture as well as other pests. So, this proper packaging shows an appreciation of the complexity of long-term storage and creates the environment to guard it. 50. Not all meats can be stored in the ground cellar. Prior curing, smoking, or drying of the meat is required before it can be stored. It is a combination of these different preservation methods that will achieve optimal results and extend the shelf life of the meat as long as possible. 51. One other amazing technique for Amish meat preservation is the large sealing of meat. The preservation offered is really incredible in such a long term. Although seemingly an unusual technique, it really represents an intimate understanding of lard's natural preservative properties. 52. In World War II, the U.S. government encouraged Americans to save lard, along with other cooking fats, for use in the production of explosives. This was their wartime value. Thus, a rich history unfolds with lard as a component that is at once both vital in food preservation and also important for war production. 53. Meat for lard sealing must be cooked, cooled, and totally dried. Care must be taken in preparing the meat so that it is ready to be sealed long-term in lard. 54. The Amish are particular with the choice and preparation of lard. It must be well rendered, clean, and hot to the correct temperature. It shows how great ingredients must be used and procedures must be strictly followed in the process of sealing lard. 55. A properly lard-sealed container can preserve meat for up to a year. a remarkable feat of preservation achieved through the creation of an airtight seal that prevents bacterial growth. This extended shelf life makes lard sealing an effective method for long-term meat storage. 56. Traditional Amish families often use crocks passed down through generations for lard sealing, a tradition that represents a connection to the past and commitment to traditional methods. The crocks, often handmade, are a tangible link to the Amish culinary heritage. 57. All air pockets must be removed in lard sealing. Any air bubbles create spaces where bacteria can thrive. This is an example of the attention to detail that is necessary to ensure a completely airtight seal for optimal preservation. 58. A simple test is applied by the Amish in checking the integrity of the seal. After the lard hardens, they turn the crock upside down. If no lard leaks, the seal is secure. This straightforward test provides a visual confirmation of the seal's effectiveness. 59. Lard sealing should be maintained under temperature control such that the lard-sealed meat should not be too cold and at the same time not such that the lard cracks. In such an ideal range, lard holds its protective layer against the growth of bacteria. 60. The Amish store meat in snow and ice. This method is another traditional method. It is before the modern refrigeration system and is a preservation method that requires an understanding of nature as well as its properties. 61. My first experience with snow and ice meat storage ended with a rather embarrassing result involving a pack of well-fed neighborhood dogs and much lost meat. My Amish mentor's merriment reminded me that much depends on how one understands this method and does it. 62. Before widespread refrigeration, the ice industry was a major economic force in America, employing vast numbers of workers to harvest ice from frozen lakes. These massive blocks of ice, some weighing up to 300 pounds, were a crucial resource for preserving food. 63. Ice harvesting was a communal event, involving significant manpower and coordination. This collaborative effort highlights the importance of community in traditional food preservation methods. 64. The Amish build specialized ice houses, structures meant to preserve ice all summer long. Such buildings are an expression of sophisticated insulation and temperature management, reflecting experience and refinement. 65. The Amish estimate the annual amount of ice they will require based on the number of animals they will slaughter, which shows a very practical and resourceful approach to managing resources. 66. The layering system used in ice houses is ingenious, with alternating layers of sawdust, ice, meat, and more ice and sawdust, creating a highly effective insulation system. This layering approach maximizes the ice's longevity and minimizes meat spoilage. 67. Crystal clear ice is essential for optimal preservation. Cloudy ice contains air bubbles that accelerate melting. The Amish assess ice clarity by attempting to read newspaper print through the ice blocks. 68. Temperature management in ice houses is crucial. The Amish carefully monitor ventilation to maintain the ideal temperature, regulating airflow to prevent excessive melting. This meticulous attention to detail reflects a deep understanding of temperature control and its impact on food preservation. 69. In laying out their ice houses, the Amish prefer aspects that avoid direct sunlight to diminish the amount of heat absorption and preserve the ice longer. This deliberate positioning clearly shows an appreciation for natural factors controlling temperature. 70. The gradual freezing process in ice houses can in fact be better than the fast modern methods of freezing used today and actually causing less damage to the cells of the meat, thus giving a clue that traditional modes have some advantages over modern technologies in specific applications. 71. The various preservation techniques, from smokehouses to ice houses, give a holistic view of how people preserve food and show a system that harmonized with nature rather than fighting against it. It is a refined system, perfected over generations, that has given the world a sustainable and resilient food production and storage system.